Hello, I'm Andy Schmuckler. I've been working on getting an idea across about the reality of a force that's reasonable to call evil, uh, defined as a coherent force that consistently works to make things worse. I've been trying to convey the importance of such a thing as to perceive the reality of a concept of a force of evil operating in the world. Uh, I'm trying to convey that to the liberal world since 2005, when I published a piece called "The Concept of Evil: Why It Is Intellectually Valid and Politically and Spiritually Important." So I've come to understand a little bit about why people don't like uh, hearing that word used to denote something real in the world. And over the years, I discovered that one of the problems that arise when I use the word evil, um, even though I tried to be clear that I was talking about something different, is that people on the liberal side seem to hear that word and thinking that we're talking about evil people, and that it is therefore inherently condemnatory in a unkind, unconstructive kind of way to talk about evil, because it means condemning people. Um, and I want to address that. Uh, if that's still something out there that gets in the way, because what I'm proposing is that we understand evil as a force that you can see operating in the world, and have to describe operationally what it is you see and how it is you see it. And I have a couple of ways of showing that you have to conclude that there is some coherent force of two kinds. One is an actor um, uh, that everything it does has the effect of making the human world worse. You can infer the force behind that. Or alternatively, you can see how brokenness begets brokenness, and how something's moving through the human world over time through the network of cause and effect. And you can see there's something coherent about the way that wars and injustices and traumas, all the various forms of brokenness that we have in the human world, reinforce each other through time. You can see a force that way too. And it's important to see such a force, actually, because one was arising in America, and that was really my reason for talking about this stuff, was to raise the alarm. Something, something dark and dangerous, fascism of a kind, is rising on the political right. Was why I really wanted to convey that thing. Um, and people would say, "Oh, it's wrong to condemn people for being evil." I mean, I can't remember all the ways in which it would appear, that thing. But no, it's a force. It's something which works through people. I mean, you get a person as broken as Donald Trump. Wow, the force is really getting a lot of mileage out of him in terms of making the human world worse. The people, I don't feel condemnatory toward the people. I always look at us all as the fruit of the world, in the world of causes and effects. We get born into where we got born into, with the genetic design that we got born with, and then we had the experiences of the world that shaped us, and here we are. Here we all are, the fruit of the world in our different forms. There, but for the grace of God, go I. I think that is just fundamentally true. If you look at you know, at what point did Trump choose to be Trump, except as being a person who had been born as with what he was into where he was? I believe in causes and effects. There's no idea about the kind of free will it would take to pin an evil on the evil person. We are what we are at some very fundamental level. The people become channels for something, like with Trump, he gets broken by the terrible father he had, or whatever all the factors were, and he he adapts by becoming a very broken person who exploits the brokenness of other people. I mean, he's a channel for a lot of brokenness getting inflicted on our world. But there, but for the grace of God, go I. So I don't hate Donald Trump. I wouldn't be sorry to see him out of the picture. Don't don't get me wrong. The image that comes to my mind is Old Yeller, great kids film from the 50s or so, where the dog is just a wonderful, wonderful animal, worthy of the love of the boy whose life he saved, but saved from a javelina, and the javelina spread rabies to the dog, and the dog becomes a carrier of a disease that threatens anybody around, and he's become a broken animal. He's no longer the Old Yeller of old. He's a rabid dog who is snarling viciously, and the boy is in this position where he has to shoot the dog. So it's not a matter of not fighting those who are channels of evil. Even as you think, there but the grace of God go I. Sometimes a man's got to do what a man's got to do, which comes from that same movie. So evil is a force. People are the carriers of the disease, or the channels for this force of brokenness to move through the world. But they are not the source of it. They are themselves broken by other aspects of the world that were broken, that result in abusive childhoods, or whatever the deal is. I've previously marveled at the idea of how much brokenness into the world was the result of whatever it was in the upbringing of the Koch brothers that made these billionaires willing to sacrifice our children and our grandchildren to get more money. Brokenness begets brokenness, and people are the means by which this pattern of brokenness gets transmitted from one form to another form, from earlier time into later time. But there's no reason to ever stop loving Old Yeller, because we are all vulnerable creatures. We are all no better than we are able to manage to be in the world that we've experienced. So anyway, that's another little piece of this integrative picture that I'm trying to convey about a better human story. Central to it is the idea that there was a juncture that we can see in an evolutionary perspective, developing further insight into that evolutionary perspective, that when you step out of the niche in which you evolved biologically, we humans did that 10 or 12,000 years ago. We were the very first, that we are inevitably creating an unprecedented situation, which not surprisingly means that there is no order to make sure that things go right, like there was with biological evolution. That juncture where we stepped out of the niche in which we evolved biologically and started inventing our own way of life, that I'm not aware of anybody paying nearly sufficient attention to the enormous ramifications of an unprecedented step of that sort. We went from the natural order into an inevitable disorder. A lot of things are the consequence of that, including the reality near the center of the human drama of a coherent force that consistently works to make the human world worse, a force of evil, a destructive force. That is an inevitable consequence of the breakthrough into civilization. And it means that the civilization creating creature inevitably faces a challenge. Having unleashed that force and growing more and more powerful, it faces the possibility that if it doesn't control this destructive force, it might destroy itself. The implication also that there is a need to understand that force and bring it under control so that the civilizational system that inevitably emerged disordered and destructive, therefore, with a systemic force that acts like evil. So I think it's important to understand what we're up against. What we're up against is something that we unleashed that continues to move through the human world and that operates in ways that tell us where it needs to be addressed if we're going to bring it under control. Okay. Subscribe if you're interested. Visit abetterhumanstory.org if you'd like to see this worldview developed in a way I think holds water. I wouldn't be making this fuss about it if I didn't have some confidence that it's justified to make these claims. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.